Okay, before I sit down with you guys, I wanted to show you the lounge outfit that I have on today. Let me tell you something. When I am in the house chilling or just lounging, there will be a lounge, a robe, something on because this, I feel like it's a good alternative to sweats. I love sweats, don't get me wrong. I got this particular outfit from Target, and when I tell you I've been living in this uniform, I've been living in this outfit. So it is a tank with the pants, and it is just so super comfy and cozy and cute, and I am just living in this outfit currently at this moment, and it is one of my faves, and this is it. I will have it linked in the description, and yeah, let's get into the video. Welcome back to the channel. So I have for you today, I'm trying to think if I want to do the 2 thrillers or the 1 thriller discussion. I'm not really quite sure, but I'm thinking maybe both of them. But the last one, kind of briefly, I'm going to go over. But there's one that I have really been wanting to discuss, and I think I'm going to go through that one in depth today. And then the other one kind of briefly. They're both so good, and they were kind of lengthy, and I don't want to spend an entire video talking about the both of them, but there's one in particular that I absolutely loved, and that will be The Teacher by Freida McFadden. So that's the first one. I'm kind of chilly, so I think I'm going to put on my robe because I thought that, well, I was kind of hot, and then now I'm cold, so I feel like I need that on for a layer of protection, so I'm going to put that on. So let's get into this book, which was The Teacher by Freida McFadden. You guys, I'm back to the thrillers. Let's just get into the book. Our 2 main characters in the book are Eve and Nate. They are teachers, and they live in New England. They've been married for 8 years. And Eve explains their relationship as though they have no spark. There's really not too much there. Like, they have it where they are scheduled to be intimate. Their marriage is not stable. She says that they do 2 kisses a day, and they really don't have a spark. She's younger than he is, and he is older than she is, but he really keeps up his appearance. Like, he's a very handsome guy. He works out. And Eve is basically just settling into her 30s, right? She's not the type of girl who's just doing a whole lot. She's a shoe lover, so she loves her designer shoes, and is pretty much obsessed with them. She even goes to the extent of hiding shoes. Hiding shoes in secret places in her closet, so that her husband doesn't find out about them. Both Eve and Nate work at Kasem High School. Kasem High School, where Eve is a math teacher, instructor, and then Nate is a English instructor. And this is the first day of school. They're both arriving or going to go to school together. And normally they take separate cars, but this particular morning they're going to take a car ride together. So at the high school, Nate is a popular teacher, and there was a teacher there by the name of Mr. Tuttle, who's no longer there after a scandal the year before. So Nate has taken over that place in that position of being the most hot teacher there at the high school, and this was given he was ranked this amongst the girls at the high school. And now there is Addie. Addie is a student there at the high school, and Addie was involved in the whole ordeal that went down the year before with her and Mr. Tuttle. And Addie is dreading coming back to school. Addie walks into the school. She hears the chatter. She hears the students talking about her. So approaching the front of the school and getting ready to come in, she encountered Kenzie. Kenzie is one of the popular girls at the high school, and Kenzie gives her a hard time. To make matters worse, Addie's ex-best friend, Hudson, has now joined the popular friend group with Kenzie. And Addie does not truly like that. And her and Hudson are no longer speaking. And Addie can't figure out really why they're not speaking, but they're not speaking. And he's hanging out with Kenzie, and Addie can't really understand it because when they were friends, they really despised this group. A part of it is because Hudson is the new quarterback, the head quarterback on the football team there at the high school. So he has some popularity behind that. But doesn't mean that he has to join in on the friend group, but I guess it comes with the territory. But she doesn't understand why he's not speaking to her. Addie gets her school schedule, and her school schedule consists of her being in Eve's class, which is the mathematics course, and her being in Nate's class, which is the English class. And what are the odds, right? What are the absolute odds that you have the husband and wife duals courses, right? And you are the girl who has been linked to the teacher being fired the last year. And I didn't explain that. So Mr. Tuttle was a teacher there at Kasem High School, and Mr. Tuttle was very involved in Addie's life because Addie had lost her father. Her father had, has passed away, and he was there to try to comfort her, and he felt really sorry and sad for her, but Addie really clinged on to the instructor, the teacher, and Mr. Tuttle, there was nothing going on between them. She was just coming to his home unannounced, and it looked as if something was going on. The police got involved. Addie was questioned about her relationship with Mr. Tuttle, and she was kind of coached into saying that something went down between her and Mr. Tuttle. And that wasn't how it was, and she felt like she was pressured into it. So what happens is Mr. Tuttle gets fired, and he's no longer working there at the high school because of this situation that went down with him and Addie. And instead of Addie really taking ownership and kind of coming out and saying, we had nothing, there was nothing going on, she just went along with the lie. Addie has class with Nate and Eve. And so she attends both class. She finds out that Eve is a very difficult teacher, and she's very stern, and students are calling her mean because she's like the no-nonsense types of teacher. She wants work done, quizzes done on time. She's not cutting any slack, really. She's about the business. And that she was also close to Mr. Tuttle. And when she notices that Addie is in her class, she's just like, okay, you got my friend fired, and I don't know if I like you. So we go off to Addie in Nate's class, and he's going over what his expectations are for the students for the year. And he talks about poets, and he's noticing or he's asking the students who's their favorite poet. And Addie basically states who her favorite poet is. They click because he likes that poet, and he mentions the poet that he's most interested in, and Addie absolutely loves this poet and begins to elaborate on this poet and things like that, and they can create a connection, which is really weird because here's the thing. I don't care if you're an instructor, teacher, or whatever. That's like a boundary. Oh my God, so cringy. they create a bond from that. And Addie is at this point thinking like, okay, well, you know, he loves great poets. That's great. But Nate has something else in mind, which is very cringy. So Nate, he's a part of the newspaper and some type of poem or poet or something club that meets, I think, like maybe twice or 3 times a year. And his wife doesn't like it. So she, you know, but she understands it. He's involved in these activities after school with the students. He's grading papers. So she's really trusting him to just do these things. But she doesn't like it. And she really, quite frankly, doesn't believe that he's just doing that. She believes that he's doing other things. And so going back to the classroom activity, he asks for Nate asks for Addie to meet him after or stay after class because he wants to speak with her. And so he's talking to her and things like that. He said, well, you know, since you really like poets and things like that, you should join this group that we have going on here at the high school. And Addie's like, oh my goodness, this teacher is really, you know, inviting me to something. She really feels isolated at this moment, so she's really clinging on to anything at this point. And Addie seems to be that type of girl. When she has something going on, anyone who gives her attention, she's going to cling on to it, and she's being sucked in by Nate. He's putting the moves on her subtly at this point. This is so cringy, y'all. Like, I mean, ugh. Addie definitely decides to become a part of this group. And she comes in and everybody's vibing and she fits right in. And so there's a contest going on and Nate makes it known to all of the group members that, hey, you can submit a paper to me of a poem or whatever, and I will pick who can enter into this big contest to, you know, win a prize or whatever. So Addie does that. Addie, and then there's another person student part of the group who wants to submit as well. So Nate is really coming on to Addie at this point. Addie's feeling really, really good about being a part of this group and things like that. And during the group, she notices Nate is paying her lots of attention and kind of being flirty towards her as well. And she likes it. She really likes it. She likes the attention and she's trying to realize or figure out, is this really happening? Is he really doing this? So Nate gets home from work and it's routine. And him and Eve, they really don't have communications and things like that, but they talk a little bit and they discuss who's in their class. And Eve is just stating like, I cannot believe, but I have that girl Addie in my class. So she's just having conversation with her husband at this point. And her husband begins to say, oh, what a coincidence. Addie's in my class too. Addie's in my class and she's pleasant and things like that. And then I guess Eve is trying to figure out like, I can't believe you're saying that. She got a teacher fired and I can't believe you are saying this. Like, you better watch out for that girl. The next day in class is the English course. And Addie comes into the English course and she notices Nate again. And she is so excited to come to this class because he pays her extra attention. And Addie's been having some trouble while they're at the high school. She's been getting bullied a little bit by Kenzie and doing really bad, mean things to her. Addie doesn't have any friends. No one will sit with her during lunch, things like that. She's been blacklisted from people, really isolated. No one wants to really be surrounded by her because of her quote unquote relationship with ex-teacher there. So no one wants to be involved with her. So she doesn't have any friends. And then Kenzie is a bully. Kenzie is making her life so miserable and so difficult. And she comes to class and she doesn't really feel her best. And Nate is paying her a lot of attention, a lot of attention, and she's liking it. And he's flirting and flirting hard. So one day they stay after for the activity for the poet group. And so everyone leaves and Addie is there with Mr. Tuttle. He tells her to stay. So they're talking and things like that. And he puts on the moves on her. And then he kisses her. Why? Well, after this kiss is, in her mind, in Addie's mind, is like very awkward. And she's trying to figure out like what is happening, what is going on. She's never even kissed a guy. She's 16. She's never kissed a guy. And she feels very uncomfortable. So she's trying to navigate and figure out what is going on and how to get through it, but she likes it. He's asking her different questions like, do you feel uncomfortable? It just seems like you're uncomfortable. And she's like, no, I really like you, and things like that. So that day happens. So if it's followed up by the next day. So the next day in class, again, Nate is flirting, and they begin to start building a bond with every day coming back and forth to class, staying after class, talking and things like that. They're kissing every day, and then eventually things start to go into another direction where they start to be intimate. They're at the school after school is done. So cringy. Like, I started to cringe just hearing this. A grown man with a 16-year-old, just I knew it was going to be some drama. I just knew it. So they find this room that's suggested by Addie that no one uses anymore, and this is where they're going to be intimate, right? And he takes her virginity, which is cringy again. Like, what is happening? Okay, what is happening? I need to get down to the plot at this moment, because all the cringiness that's going down is just absolutely driving me nuts. Like, I'm trying to get through it at this point. And in the midst of everything, the wife is seeing that he's staying after school and things like that. She knows he does these types of things. But here's the twist. The wife is also cheating, okay? She has her a side piece. But what's cringy on her behalf as well, she's messing around with a married man with a child, okay? So go figure. Like, they're just mixed up. They're just messed up individuals that got together. Things progress and they go on. So she begins to still have difficulties with Mackenzie, and she's been caught up in all these situations. And her ex-best friend Hudson sees what's going on, and he's like, Addie, are you okay? Is everything okay? And she is still not really understanding why they don't have a strong friendship and things like that, until one day he talks to her. What went down between us really made it uncomfortable for me to be able to still be your friend and be close to you. So this is what went down. So one day, Hudson and Addie were hanging out at her house, and Addie's father is very, very mean. So they were hanging out, and I guess there was something that went down where her father was being very, very rude and very mean to the both of them. And then all of a sudden, what happened so fast, where the father fell down the stairs. Addie pushed him down the stairs, and the father ends up passing away from that fall. And Hudson couldn't believe everything that went down. So he had a hard time adjusting to what happened, even though Addie's father was never nice of a person, and he was always mean, and he treated her, badly, and her mom badly, that she didn't see a reason for him to exist or be around. Like, she wanted him gone, but she took matters into her own hands. And Hudson basically seen all of it go down, and he couldn't get over it. and they never spoke about it. So that him not expressing how he felt towards her and her not understanding why, that's why they hadn't had a strong connection. We go on to Eve's class, and with Addie being in Eve's class is a whole situation. Addie is having all types of difficulties in Eve's class. It's not intentionally, but she's not as strong of a math person. So the work that she's doing, she's barely getting through it. But what's happening, I think she had one incident where she was being bullied by Kinsey, and something smudged her homework, and that she came in, she realized it was ruined. She was like, you know what? I can't do all of this work again. I'm just gonna have to turn it in as is. And her instructor, her teacher, was not pleased with it. Eve was not pleased with it. She said, you know, this is not acceptable. You can't turn this in, so you need to redo it. So after that particular day, it just got harder and harder for her in her class. One day, Eve runs into Mr. Tuttle. Mr. Tuttle is in a store, he's shopping. He's warning Eve, watch out for this girl, Addie. Addie is bad news. So Eve has this in her mind as though I need to be aware of her, right? I need to be aware of her. She has bad behaviors because she's up to no good. So now things start to change. So since Addie has been sleeping with Nate, her teacher, things have started to change because he's now paying other students attention and less attention towards her. And Addie is noticing, but she's like, you know, I'm not gonna put too much into it and that, and he still likes me, he still loves me and things like that. And she's not really bothered by it, but she notices the changes. And she is aware that something could be happening, but not totally aware. She's so emblissed at this moment with how much attention she's getting from this handsome teacher, and she just can't believe it. And she's taking it all in. Like, she's a young, impressionable girl. One day, Addie was at lunch, and Nate had written her a letter. And she had this letter in her, I guess, notebook. And so what happened is that Kinsey was up to her old tricks and ended up coming to the table, bullying her, and found the letter from Nate. At that point, Kinsey had already seen the letter, and she had a glimpse of it. Addie starts to stalk at their house, and it's outside watching them and things like that. So it sounds like the same behavior that was going on with Mr. Tuttle. She's repeating this behavior now with Nate and Eve. One day, Eve finds out that Nate is flirting and Eve finds out that Nate is having a affair with one of the students, and the student is Addie. So she has proof. She actually popped up on them one day, just looking through a classroom window, or not a classroom window, a classroom door. And she notices her husband putting the moves on Addie and kind of being the aggressor. So she snaps a picture. Smart lady, smart. He takes a picture of the two of them interacting. And she's like, you know what? I knew something else was going on because he was taking up too much for her at home. There were too many conversations about this girl. She has this picture, so she's going to confront him. So she confronts him at home about having this affair with one of the students, Addie. And she's like, you know what? This marriage is over. I want you out. I want you out of the house. I want the house. I want you to get all your things and just go. And he agrees to all of it. And she's just saying, well, you know what? You better find another school to work at because I don't want to have you there messing up a young girl's life. And he was like, well, you know, he started to be a little sassy with it. And he was like, well, you have no proof. It's me against you. And Addie is not going to say anything because she we have an agreement. Eve says, not so fast. Not so fast. I absolutely have proof. So she whips out the picture of him and Addie embracing in a classroom. And he's like, oh, you know, she has proof. Okay, you have it. I will leave the school. I'll leave the house. You can have the house. I'm out of here. So he packs a bag. He gets on out. And that's that. And also, Eve stated you can no longer have any communication with Addie. He no longer has communication with Addie, and Addie is wondering why he's not returning her texts and things like that, because they're on something almost similar to Snapchat. I forget what they call it, but it's something called something different than Snapchat. But this is how they're communicating, because the communication erases after a certain amount of time, the messages and things like that. So he's no longer taking her calls and things like that on Snapchat and or whatever form of social media that they're communicating on. But she finally gets in contact with him, and then he's telling Addie, Nate is telling Addie, hey, my wife knows about us. Wife knows about us and our relationship that we had going on. But Addie, you have to know something. You cannot mention or say anything about our relationship. If anyone asks you, nothing happened. So Addie has this built in her head, but she's frustrated. Addie knows how damaged Eve and Nate's relationship is and how unhappy Nate is in his relationship. And she just doesn't understand why Eve won't just let him be. Let him be, because Addie is just this oblivious young lady who's just so obsessed with her teacher now because he's giving her attention. They're being intimate, things like that. And she just wants to know why Eve is messing up their relationship. During this conversation with Nate, Nate also tells her, you know, I'm out of the house. And he's saying that if this could all just, if Eve could just go away, we could find a way to be together. Well, at this time, Addie is very impressionable. She's taking this all in, right? And she's just thinking, oh, well, if she's not here, then we can be together. Addie takes it upon herself and comes to the home of Eve and Nate. And at this time, Eve is there by herself. So she breaks into the house. And so Eve hears someone in the home, but she's not quite sure she hears what she hears, but she hears someone there. So she's going to check out the situation. She goes to the kitchen, and who's standing there? No other than Addie. Eve is saying to her, Addie, what's wrong? What are you doing? And things like that. And she's like, why won't you just let Nate and me be together? We love each other. We want to be together. And if you just let us be together, everything will be good. Eve is to the point, she's like, you don't know what you're talking about. He's manipulating you. You don't know what you're talking about. And then Addie's getting heated. So Addie at this point is so frustrated, and then Eve is trying to talk her down, and Addie's not hearing it. So Addie all of a sudden picks up a frying pan and whacks Eve across the head and knocks her cold out. Addie is standing there and can't believe she has done this act. She doesn't know what to do. Again, she feels like she has another murder on her hands because she did kill her father. So now she's feeling as though, oh my gosh, I've killed someone else. She sees blood on the floor and she doesn't know what to do. She notices Eve's phone on the counter. So she picks up Eve's phone. So she unlocks the phone. She gets Nate's phone number out of it. She calls Nate, thinks that it's Eve calling him. And it's really Addie. And he's like, Addie, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Like, what's happening? You're calling me from Eve's phone? What's going on? Tells Nate the whole ordeal. Nate rushes over. This moment in time, Nate comes to the home and he notices that Addie is there and Eve, his wife, is there unconscious. Blood is coming out. So he's like, oh my goodness. So he's like, you know what? You need to go upstairs, Addie, find some sheets and stuff. We need to wrap her in it so we can get rid of the body. So Addie goes upstairs. She's looking for sheets. While she's looking for the sheets, Nate is still there. He finds her phone. He erases the picture, the evidence of him and Addie together. And he's looking at his wife. His wife is coming too. So she's not dead. And then she's stating to Nate, she's saying, hey, we need to call the police. That girl, Addie, broke in here and she tried to kill me. And they're going back and forth and he's like, no. So he takes it upon himself. He's going to finish the job. So he strangles her till she goes unconscious. And he's thinking he unalived her. Addie comes back downstairs with the sheets and things like that to wrap her Eve's body in. But Addie notices these angry red marks on Eve's neck. Before they leave, he decides, I'm going to set this whole situation up as though Eve left to go and see her parents and she just left and no one knows where she is. He gets a ticket for her to take a train ride to go and see her parents or wherever her parents live. And that's going to be the alibi. So they put the body in Eve's car. They arrive at this pumpkin patch where they're going to bury Eve's body. So he gives Addie a shovel. He has a shovel. They're both shoveling. He leaves her to it and he gets in his car and he takes off. So she's left there with the body of Eve and her lovely love interest, who she's so obsessed with, leaves her there. And Addie does not know what to do. She calls the one person that she feels like can get her out of this, so she can get out of this whole situation. Hudson arrives there. Addie is just so overwhelmed and things like that. He picks her up. She's asking him not to ask any questions and to take her home. And remember, if anybody asks, that he did not pick her up and he doesn't remember this day. Hudson is asking her, are you okay? Addie gets back home. Her mom's still not there. Her mom is actually at work. She's a nurse. She's working the overnight shift and she's not there. Cuts to the next day. Nate is beginning to, think about everything that happened and went down. So he's figuring out sooner or later he's gonna have to call the police. He finally calls the police and he states that, his wife's missing, things like that. The police are going through all the questions, when you last seen your wife and things like that. All of this is unraveling. And during the whole investigation, shoes are being planted around the house. And Nate is confused. Her nice heels are being planted all over the place. Once they're in the tub, once they're in the kitchen, and it's mud and it's like pumpkin seeds and things like that on these heels. And he's being freaked out. Like, who's playing with my mind like this? He can't understand how is all this happening. Come to know that his wife is not dead. His wife called her trusty love interest, Jay, to come and pick her up when she came to. So she found herself in the shallow grave. She didn't understand what was going on. She had on no shoes. It's so funny to me because she realized she didn't have on any shoes, and it's like, that's the first thing you think about. Realized she was in a shallow grave, things like that. And she came across her phone. So she didn't have any cell service. So she had to walk until she got cell service, called Jay. Jay came to pick her up and he bought her shoes to put on. All this is revolving around shoes. This is very weird and odd to me, but okay. She tells him the whole situation that went down and how she doesn't want to go back to the house. She doesn't want to go back to the house. She's going to play into this whole scenario. So all of this is going down. So Eve is actually the person who's planting all the shoes all around the house and playing with her husband's mind. And so while everything is unfolding, Kenzie mysteriously comes and she wants to talk to Addie. And Addie can't understand while all this is going on. And at this moment, everybody knows about what's happening and things like that. And Addie is really still not known. No one knows that her and Nate had a relationship. So no one knows that part. But they know that Eve is missing. This is the talk around the school. And what alerts Kenzie is that the letter that she found in Addie's notebook when they had the whole situation in the lunchroom. So she comes to pay Addie a visit, and Addie is perplexed. She's thinking to herself, why are you here, Kenzie? You don't like me. Why are you here? So Kenzie wants to talk to her in private. And at this moment, Addie's mom is like, oh, I don't know. But she allows it. She begins to tell her that her teacher, Nate, not only had a relationship with her, Addie, but he's also had a relationship with Kenzie as well. And he started having a relationship with Kenzie when she was 14. Oh my goodness, like this was just the icing on the cake. And it all clicked. And she was just making reference of that letter that she found. She said, gave me the same identical letter. And so all of this started to come together for Addie. Kenzie begins to say, well, I wanted to go to the police about this, but I need someone to back me up. Like if we go together, we will be believed. And Addie is going back and forth in her head because she's like, no, this can't be. And she's just really trying not to believe this. So she gives in. She remembers she has a card from the detective who's investigating the whole situation that's going down between Eve and Nate. And so she gives the detective a call. They go down to the police station. They're beginning to talk. And at this point, they're being interrogated or interviewed or whatever you want to call it. And the detective is asking Addie, do you know what happened to Eve? And Addie is still not wanting to say. And after everything goes down, she finally gets to the point she'll tell the detective everything. So she tells the detective, but what happens is Eve pops back up. Eve pops back up, and now Nate is freaked out because Nate thinks that Eve is dead, but Eve pops back up at the house. So Eve basically takes out her husband and she magically appears again in the whole scenario, in the situation, and all is well. No one knows what happens to Nate. They think that Nate has just skipped town and he's just no longer present in the picture anymore. He just didn't want to be embarrassed and he didn't want things to come out. So he just skipped town and everybody's magically okay with that. But what everybody comes to find out at the end that Eve tells her story is that Eve was also a young girl when Nate started putting the moves on her. And they went from having a relationship while Eve was in high school to college, and then they eventually got married. So this was a whole cycle of Nate being a manipulator and taking advantage of young girls. Oh my God, this was so disturbing. The twist and the turns that this whole story went in had me cringing at the end of my seat and just wondering, like, when is the good part? What's going on? When I start seeing the shoes pop up here and there, right? Because that's like some freaky stuff. It's like some paranormal stuff at first is what you're thinking about. Like the shoes are popping up, so it's the ghost of Eve, right? But it's not. Eve is really not dead. She's just messing with her husband's head. What did I think about the actual book? I'm going to say this time I'm going to give it, 4 stars. Only because I feel like with the underage dating, I didn't really love that storyline. I didn't. But the suspense and things like that, the shoe lover in Eve was really singing to my heart. But the suspense in it was really doing something for me, and I absolutely love that. So I would definitely give this 4 stars. So that's what I thought about The Teacher by the author Freida McFadden. It is definitely, I feel like, a must read or a must listen to. I would say it would definitely keep you entertained. The next and final book is The Things We Do in the Dark by, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, Jennifer Hillier. And this book was absolutely it was good. It was a twist to this thriller. And I want to say that the author of this book, I like how she did it. I like that a lot of the authors are now giving trigger warnings at the beginning of the audiobooks or the books, because they want to prepare people. And this book dealt with addiction, it dealt with abuse, sexual abuse, you know, so she makes this all known at the beginning, which I absolutely love, because I feel like it kind of helps people understand what they're going to get themselves into. So before they get into the book, they understand that if I want to read this or if I'm not going to want to read it, if it's going to be triggering for me. So this book has all that involved in it. The book is really based on a woman named Paris Peralta, who's married to a famous comedian by the name of Jimmy Peralta. There are so many twists and turns in this whole relationship. With their relationship, they have a 29-year age gap relationship. This relationship works for them. They both don't have expectations. They are just being them in the relationship. They don't care what others think, but Jimmy has a past and Paris has a past. Paris was formerly known as someone else, and Jimmy dealt with addiction. Addiction takes over Jimmy. Jimmy unalives himself and Paris is blamed for it. All of these turns of events are going on, and when I tell you guys this is a thriller that will keep you at the edge of your seat and keep you guessing, you will absolutely love it. There's so many key players in here that will have you guessing and thinking something else. Paris's past comes back to haunt her, and people want to embezzle money because they feel like she has money. And people who are or were involved in Jimmy's life are now mysteriously getting money as well from his will. And this book is a whole bunch of turns of events. I absolutely love this book. I would definitely give this book a 4.5 stars, just because the storytelling was great. It definitely took you on a thriller ride, right? So I absolutely love that part. And then really at the end of the audiobook, it had a interview with the author in a podcast that she was on doing an interview for. And it really takes you through who this author is, Jennifer, who she is, and how she creatively comes up with things, and the pressures of being an author, and other little juicy things. And if you're going to listen to this audiobook, I would say it is a must listen. It will definitely keep your attention. And at the end, if you stick around for that, it'll also give you more information about the author herself. So I recommend. I wanted to keep it short with this one because I could have went on about this book, but I absolutely loved this book. Again, I'm going to give it a 4.5. Definitely recommend this book. So if you want a good read to get into, I recommend this book, The Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. So check it out today. You won't be disappointed. So thank you again for tuning in to this book review. I know it was kind of long. Y'all, I just get so wrapped up and I get so into the books. I want to kind of give you the experience. So when you read them and you kind of see for yourself, you see where I was going, right? But I want to keep you involved. I want to keep you excited about reading and getting into your books and things like that. And I hope you're as excited as I am. Leave in the comments, what books are you reading currently? What books are you currently listening to? Give me some suggestions of books maybe that I can get into. I do love thrillers. I just want to throw that out there. But I do like love romance books as well. And I'm willing to try other things out, right? So give me some suggestions that you have when it comes to books that I can get into. And just tell me what you're up to these days. I would love to hear. Let's talk in the comments. That is the end of the video. I will see you on the next one. Bye. Here, you say hi to the people.